You'll be happy to know that I just got into a little bit of like a Twitter tussle with Sam Harris's minions. Sam Harris does not has not he engaged, and then I guess I don't know if he's going to.
Well, wait, he got involved. It wasn't Sam Harris. It was one of his people.
It was Sam Harris, and then like a bunch of
sycophants.
Yes. That's
yeah.
It was rather entertaining for me.
I'm going to have to check it out because finally someone else is coming. Well, some other people are coming to my defense. Not my defense.
Oh, no. I slammed you in the course of it. I totally slammed you in it. I don't care about this whole new atheist thing. I don't care about atheists. I don't care about new atheists. I have some vague interest in atheism. I maybe arguably am on some level an atheist. But I don't care about it as an entity or a movement or whatever. The only thing that I took issue with was really on some level was Sam Harris, sort of providing the intellectual cover for Islamophobes and I should say really the pseudo-intellectual cover, because it's all just him pontificating. There's no data really to support anything he says as far as I can see. Maybe a couple of polls he cites or something, and then make some very broad, sweeping assessments. But it provides intellectual cover for the worst elements in our society, and frankly, also sort of lays the groundwork for those who hope to have war, a new war in the Middle East or an ongoing one. So.
Right, but when you say you don't care about it, I'm actually surprised to hear you say that, because the difference between new atheism and atheism is the fact that they're saying that Muslims are evil and Islam is evil, and you have a guy like Sam Harris who's I guess a neuroscientist. Now all of a sudden he's an expert on Islam, and obviously he's not, or they cherry pick from, they point to some passage. Like Jews, we have a song where we sing that Haman was swinging while Mordecai was singing. All right, so we have a thing, and that doesn't mean I go around singing and hanging my enemies. I don't go around killing my bringing my firstborn. I don't have any kids, but I don't go around sacrificing my firstborn because in the Bible. So it's like.
Well, but let's be honest. I mean, when we talk about, as Jews, the angel of death flying over the Israelites,
right.
The Hebrews' homes because they put in shank blood on it, that's perfectly reasonable, right? And because the angel of death then goes to slaughter the firstborn of the Egyptians, that's perfectly reasonable. But when you get this type of stuff in the Quran, that's not reasonable. I mean, look, that's the thing is that, like, I think all of it is ludicrous on some level, but I think it has some social value to people. And if it does, God bless them. I mean, or not, God bless them.
But Sam, here's the thing. They will say, because everything they're doing is an intellectual cover-up, then they will say that they also hate Judaism. Like Sam Harris, he said, Islam was the motherlode of bad ideas. Well, then stuff happened in Israel, and then he's going, well, Judaism is also the motherlode of bad ideas. It's like the bottom line is you cannot base blaming murderers, terrorists. I'm Jewish. Netanyahu's Jewish. Netanyahu is I can't think of a more dangerous person who's the head of a country right now. So obviously, it doesn't have anything to do with. I mean, yes, people are of a religion, but to spend all this time saying the root cause of everything is religion is just ludicrous. It doesn't help anything. It just makes people hate, want to round up Muslims more, which is what's going to happen. That's why I think the new atheism is actually extremely dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I haven't explored it from on atheist terms. I've just explored it from the sense of, like, I've read the 2005 piece that Sam Harris wrote in defense of torture, and before any Sam Harris fans say I'm mischaracterizing it, that was the title of the piece.
You get it, man.
I'm sorry, I'm not getting the nuance in there. But
there's a Pew poll that says that Muslims don't like people. And then
I will also, for the sake of accuracy, acknowledge the fact that 8 years later, he wrote a clarification on a different website. So so that he actually 8 years later, after the debate is over, he wrote a clarification on a website saying he still thinks it should be probably illegal.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry.
The thing is, he says, they make arguments like, we hate Islam, but it doesn't mean we hate individual Muslims. And then you should see these sites that they have with or they go, the other one that I love is, well, people accuse them of racism. It's not racism because Islam isn't a race. That's your defense for your hate? Hey, technically, they're not a race. Nice try. I caught you again with my brilliant mind. I justified hate.
And I'm actually right now looking at a tweet from one of his supporters. And he says, Sam Seder, you suggest Sam Harris is a neocon because he thinks, and then I think he puts in parentheses false, because he's claiming this is not Sam Harris's belief. And but he says, because he thinks democracy must be exported through military intervention. I got news for you. That's what a neocon is. And he goes on to say, but you don't think you need to substantiate that claim? Now, I don't know what part of that he needs it substantiated. I mean, Sam Harris is an avowed liberal interventionist. And he went on to say that that the moral clarity on this issue of Islam is best presented by the Christian right. And then he went on to say that the best assessment of the threat is provided by European fascists. Now, I guess, he doesn't cite which fascists or which members of the Christian right he's talking about, and that's very convenient because I guess then later you can then issue another clarification 8 years later and say, well, I wasn't talking about those. What's that?
Well, what he says the move there is, and that's why it's such a problem that liberals aren't real about it, because it's dangerous that fascists and Christian right are right about this. So we need to have their position so it's not a problematic position anymore. That's
Bill Maher says
the argument.
Same thing. Bill Maher is the same. Bill Maher's whole thing is, hey, liberals, you're not liberals. You're not real liberals. No, being a liberal means you're tolerant of other people's beliefs unless they're bothering you. Why do you care about what people think unless they're bothering you?
But you know what? I don't even think, listen, I think it's perfectly legitimate to say, look, I fight for women's rights around the world. I'm just saying, I'm not saying me.
Obviously you don't, of course.
Right, obviously I don't. But I'm saying I think it's perfectly legitimate and say we're going to provide funding for people in different countries and organizations and tools. But I think when it comes down to saying, like, there is the assessment of the threat is most clearly understood by fascists in Europe. They're not exactly saying we should just support, we should provide support and education and groups. I think they're talking about a little bit more violence. When the Christian right has a moral sense of what Islam is, their moral sense is it's not right with God. It's not right in absolute terms. And then basically there was something about, I think, some type of crusade involved in really on the Christian. I mean, what was that? The Boykin, Admiral Boykin. Our God's going to defeat their God. Was he Admiral or General Boykin?
I think he was a general.
That's what the Christian right is. Now, maybe he's talking about a different Christian right. I don't know.
No, but they also say we shouldn't work. Yeah, their argument is, Bill Maher's argument is that we no longer have to worry about the Christian right or anybody. The only thing is, like he says, Islam is the problem. That's the big thing. Everything else was problem hundreds of years ago. Of course, Bill Maher has no knowledge of what he's talking about on most subjects. But the point is, it's like remember when a few months ago, Lawrence O'Donnell, everybody was like saying Obama should never, Obama has to identify that they're Islamic terrorists. It's like as if that's going. The fact that Obama is being a politician about and saying basically they're distorting Islam. That's what a politician is supposed to do. It's like even the military leaders are saying we have to work with moderate Muslims around the world. It's like you heard of the debates. They're all use the same stuff that Bill Maher uses and all these other guys use about how he won't even identify that they're Islamic.
Well, first off, I mean, the idea that somehow identifying them as Islamic, it's what is supposed to happen next. Like, the conversation seems to end there and just sort of, well, let's just let this hang out there, that that Islam in and of itself is a problem. What is next in that project to reform Islam? Is it, well, now that we've all acknowledged it, all us non-Muslims have acknowledged it's a problem, what's supposed to happen next? And what's most likely?
Nothing but bad things happen from them doing that. They're not going to save one terrorist.
I want to remind people too that Paul Wolfowitz and Richard Pearl were not going around in the 90s and standing on the rooftop saying that we need to invade Iraq. They were quietly building the intellectual foundations for which would provide different constituencies a legitimate reason to invade if there was a predicate. Okay, that's the bottom line. Is that we are, when in the context of any number of countries in the Middle East, we are in the phase where people are looking to adopt broad, sweeping, general principles that will be building blocks for our next war. That's the way they do it. Now, I'm not saying that's what Sam Harris is consciously doing. I think he's just, frankly, just a guy who hit on a formula in which to get some attention to himself, and
absolutely,
and that's what it's about. And I have respect for that. All my friends are performers in some form or another, but don't pretend that there's some type of like intellectual rigor here by saying, well, a large number of Muslims, we're talking 1.6 billion, but he doesn't give us the data on how many are a threat to us and why this massive threat, we're still able to sit here and talk.
Okay. There's also...
This is how bright. That's the thing that bothers me, is that these guys are not bright. That their whole thing is that they're intellectual, but they're not bright, because he started to say, I don't know if he was responding to me, probably not to me, to somebody else, where someone brought up about Netanyahu, and he was saying, well, Judaism is the motherlode of bad ideas as well. But then he took the number of Muslims in the world and the number of Jews in the world, and he said, if the Jews are a problem, they're this much less of a problem by dividing the number of Muslims and Jews. So he is basically saying all the Muslims are the problem and all the Jews are the problem, but there's less Jews.
I'll reiterate what I said a couple of weeks ago. The number of Democratic leaders assassinated by religious extremists in a supposed democratic state is one, as far as I know, and it happened in Israel.
Well, the other, right. I think the other big problem, though, is that even when you accept that logic, is you're basically saying that people who are fanatics, or whatever you want to call it, whether they're Muslims or Jews, are the most accurate representations of that religion.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You're immediately conceding this incredibly important debate inside the religion and saying, oh, the guy doing like the Al-Qaeda attack, that's the actual Muslim.